I still remember that day as clearly as if it happened yesterday. The laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses, all the sounds of joy echoing through the ballroom. But beneath the celebration, something felt off. Maybe it was intuition, or maybe it was the way my 8-year-old grandson, Ethan, kept glancing at me with those curious eyes. I was seated at table 12, the family table, surrounded by people who had been part of my life for decades, friends, relatives, in-laws. My daughter, Claire, looked radiant in her wedding gown. She was the very picture of happiness, and as a mother, seeing that made my heart swell with pride. Then Ethan's small hand slipped into mine, squeezing tighter than I expected. His fingers trembled. "Grandma," he whispered, leaning close enough for me to feel his breath on my ear. "I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to get mad." His voice was so serious that I froze. My smile faltered. I turned to him and noticed how pale he looked. "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked softly, trying to stay calm even as my heart raced. He glanced around nervously, afraid someone might overhear. Then, in the quietest whisper, he said, "Grandma, the man Mom's marrying, he's not who you think he is." I frowned. "What do you mean, Ethan?" Before he could answer, the music shifted, and someone called for the newlyweds' first dance. Ethan hesitated, biting his lip. "I'll tell you later," he said. I tried to dismiss the unease settling over me. Maybe it was just a child's imagination. Maybe he'd misunderstood a conversation. But something in his tone, the fear, the certainty, wouldn't let me ignore it. As the dance began, I watched my daughter twirl in her husband's arms. Cameras flashed, champagne flowed, everyone clapped and smiled. To the world, it was perfect. But all I could see was Ethan's worried face and the tremble in his hand when he shared his secret. After the ceremony, when guests moved toward the garden for photos, Ethan tugged my sleeve again. "Grandma, come with me, please," he urged. We slipped away quietly, unnoticed in the chaos of laughter and music. He led me down a narrow hallway toward the staff rooms. My heels clicked softly on the floor, echoing in the dim light. "Ethan, where are we going?" I whispered. He stopped in front of a door labeled storage room and turned to me with eyes far too serious for an 8-year-old. "He was in here earlier," he said. "Who?" I asked. "Mom's new husband." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean he was here?" Ethan hesitated, then pulled a small, black flash drive from his pocket. "I found this," he said. He dropped it. My breath caught. "Ethan, where did you?" Footsteps approached. Ethan's eyes widened in fear. He quickly shoved the flash drive into my hand. "Hide it," he whispered. I slipped it into my purse just as the door opened. And there he was, Daniel, my daughter's new husband. He smiled, but something in that smile made my stomach twist. "There you two are," he said smoothly. "We were wondering where you disappeared to." Ethan pressed against my side, clutching my dress. "Oh, we were just getting some air," I said quickly, forcing a polite smile. Daniel's eyes lingered on me a moment long. I could have sworn he glanced toward my purse. Then, as if nothing happened, he nodded and said, "Don't keep the photographer waiting." He walked away, but in that brief moment, I knew something was terribly wrong. That night, after the wedding ended and guests had gone home, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, save for the ticking of the old clock. My purse sat on the dresser, and inside, hidden beneath my lipstick and tissues, was the small black flash drive Ethan had given me. I kept thinking about his face, the fear in his eyes, the trembling in his voice. What could make an 8-year-old so terrified on one of the happiest days of his life? I got out of bed, put on my robe, and quietly walked to my study. Moonlight spilled through the curtains. I turned on my old laptop and inserted the flash drive. At first, nothing happened. Then a folder appeared, no name, no label, just one video file. My heart pounded as I double-clicked it. The video opened, grainy and dimly lit, like hidden security footage. A date in the corner showed it was from 2 months ago. The camera focused on Daniel's office. He sat behind his desk, talking on the phone. Calm at first, then his tone shifted. "No, she doesn't know yet. I told you I'd handle it after the wedding. Once I have access to her accounts, you'll get your share." My blood ran cold. Accounts, share. What was he talking about? "Relax, Claire trusts me completely. By next week, it'll all be transferred. No one will suspect a thing," he continued. My hand covered my mouth. He wasn't marrying my daughter for love, he was after her money. I paused the video, trying to steady my breath. Claire had worked so hard her whole life, building her business from scratch after her father died. And now, this man, a stranger she thought was her savior, planned to betray her. A soft knock at the door made me jump. "Grandma?" Ethan's small voice trembled. "Did you watch it?" I nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, I saw everything." He looked down, voice trembling. "I didn't mean to spy. I just wanted to know why he was lying to Mom." I found the flash drive in his jacket. I took his hands in mine. "You did the right thing, Ethan. You were brave." Tears glistened in his eyes. "What do we do now?" That question haunted me long after he went back to bed. If I told Claire immediately, she might think I was overprotective. I needed undeniable proof. The next morning, I called my old friend Harold, a retired private investigator. If anyone could help, it was him. After hearing everything, he sighed. "You realize what you're getting into, right? If he's scamming your daughter, he's not alone." "I don't care," I said. "I just need to protect my family." Harold agreed to investigate Daniel's background. Meanwhile, I had to act normal, smile, pretend everything was fine, and keep the flash drive hidden like my life depended on it. Days passed. Claire and Daniel returned from their honeymoon, glowing and happy. Every time I saw them together, my stomach twisted. Daniel was charming, loving with Ethan, perfect to the world, but behind that smile, I saw cold calculation. One evening, I caught him watching me across the dinner table. That's when I realized he knew. He knew I had seen the video. The next night, tension was thick. Every glance Daniel gave me felt like a test, a threat. Ethan sensed it too, clinging to my side like an anchor in a storm. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I had to gather undeniable proof. I asked Ethan to stay in his room, pretending we were reading. Then I crept to Daniel's study. The door was slightly ajar. He was there, whispering on the phone. I couldn't hear everything, but words like money, transfer, and no one can know made my blood run cold. A soft sound behind me. "Grandma?" Ethan's voice trembled. "I followed you. I couldn't let you go alone." My heart squeezed. "Ethan, this is dangerous. You must hide." "No, I'm staying. We can do this together," he insisted. His courage gave me strength. We crept closer. I peeked through the gap. Daniel turned away for a second enough. I grabbed my phone, recording. "Liv, you're not getting away with this," I whispered. Daniel spun around, shock registered on his face. "What are you doing?" "Recording everything," I said, voice shaking but firm. "You've been lying, scheming, and planning to hurt my family." Ethan stepped forward, holding his T-Rex. "Grandma's right. I saw everything. You put something in her glass at the wedding." Daniel froze, his charm slipped, panic flickered in his eyes. "You don't understand," he started. "Stop lying," I shouted. "I have proof. You thought you could manipulate my daughter, scare me, even hurt us. Not a chance." The phone recorded every word. Ethan repeated what he had seen: the white powder, the dangerous plan. Daniel's face turned pale. You have no idea." "I do," I said. "This ends tonight." The police arrived moments later. Harold had been following Daniel and called them. Within minutes, officers filled the study. Daniel tried to protest, but the evidence video, recording Ethan's testimony was undeniable. Daniel was taken away in handcuffs. Relief washed over me. I hugged Ethan tightly. "You were so brave, my little hero," I whispered. "You saved us all." He smiled, tired but proud. "I just did what I had to, Grandma. I knew it was wrong." Later, I handed Claire the flash drive. She watched, horror and disbelief in her eyes. "You're safe now," I said. Marcus held my hand. "Mom, you saved all of us." I smiled, exhausted but relieved. Ethan curled up beside me, clutching his T-Rex, the little hero who uncovered the truth. That night, I realized something profound. Bravery often comes in the smallest forms. A tiny hand, a trembling voice, and a fearless heart can change everything. As I watched Ethan sleep, I whispered, "Thank you, my little hero. You saved more than me, you saved our family." In the days that followed, life slowly returned to normal. Justice was served, and our home became a place of safety and love again. Ethan continued his routines, laughter returning to our halls. One evening, I watched him with his T-Rex. Not just a toy anymore, it was a symbol of courage, loyalty, and innocence that revealed the darkest truths. "Grandma," he asked quietly, "do you think people like Daniel will come back?" I shook my head. "Not if we stay vigilant, Ethan. Courage like yours keeps us safe." Marcus smiled faintly. "Mom, I don't know how to thank you. It was Ethan, too. You have a brave grandson." "Never forget that," I said. Weeks turned into months, and life regained normalcy. The wedding had been meant for joy but became a turning point. Darkness revealed, healing began. Ethan learned that bravery and truth overcome deceit, carrying that lesson in his heart. I often sit by the window at night, watching him sleep, clutching his T-Rex. Shadows of that wedding night remain, but courage, love, and vigilance chase them away. Sometimes he asks, "Did I really save everyone?" And I always answer, full of pride, "Yes, my little hero. You didn't just save me. You saved our family. Your bravery brought truth to light." Even the smallest among us can be the greatest protectors. Innocence can be stronger than any adult courage. Every birthday, I whisper, "You didn't just celebrate your life, you saved ours." In the weeks and months that followed, our lives slowly returned to a sense of normalcy. Daniel was formally charged, and the people who had aided his schemes faced consequences as well. Justice moved swiftly once the evidence was undeniable. At home, the atmosphere grew lighter. Claire and Marcus smiled cautiously at first, but the tension that had gripped our family began to ease. Ethan, my little hero, returned to his playful routines, laughing, playing, and hugging me tightly every chance he got. One evening, I watched him hold his small green T-Rex. It was no longer just a toy, it had become a symbol of courage, loyalty, and the innocence that had exposed the darkest truths. "Grandma," he asked quietly, his wise little eyes looking up at me, "do you think people like Daniel will ever come back?" I shook my head, holding him close. "Not if we stay vigilant, Ethan. Courage like yours keeps us safe." Marcus approached, smiling faintly but clearly relieved. "Mom, I don't know how to thank you. You saved all of us. I can't imagine what could have happened if you hadn't acted." I smiled back, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "It wasn't just me. Ethan helped too. You have a brave grandson. Never forget that." Weeks turned into months, and life gradually regained its rhythm. The wedding, meant to be a day of pure joy, had become a turning point for our family. The darkness was revealed, and with it came healing. Marcus began to speak openly about past fears and regrets, no longer silenced by manipulation. We shared memories, laughed, and sometimes cried, but always together. Ethan learned an important lesson: bravery and truth could overcome deceit. That lesson stayed with him, quietly shaping the heart of a little hero. I often sit by the window at night, watching him sleep with his T-Rex clutched tightly in his hands. The shadows of that wedding night still linger in my mind. but they have been chased away by courage, love, and vigilance. Sometimes Ethan turns to me in the morning and asks, "Grandma, did I really save everyone?" And I always answer the same way, my heart full of pride. "Yes, my little hero. You didn't just save me. You saved our family." That night, your bravery brought the truth into the light. It's a reminder that even the smallest among us can be the greatest protectors. Innocence can be a shield stronger than any adult courage. From that day on, our home became a place of safety and love again. The scars remain, but so does the bond forged by a tiny, fearless heart. And every birthday, I whisper to Ethan, "You didn't just celebrate your life, you saved ours." The story may have an ending, but its lesson lives on. Courage is timeless. And sometimes, the most unlikely heroes are children, small in size but mighty in heart. When my son said, "Sign here, Mom," I had no idea I was signing away my entire life. You know that moment when you realize the person you'd die for would let you die without blinking? Yeah, I know that feeling now. My name is Dorothy Chen, and I'm 73 years old. For the past 50 years, I poured every ounce of love, sacrifice, and money into raising my only son, Marcus. His father died when Marcus was just 8 months old, a construction accident that left me with nothing but a tiny life insurance payout and a baby who needed everything. I worked 3 jobs. I cleaned offices at night, worked retail during the day, and took in sewing on weekends. My hands were raw, my back constantly ached, but I never complained because every dollar went toward making sure Marcus had what I never did, opportunity. He went to private school. I ate ramen so he could have tutors. He got into a prestigious university while I deferred my own dreams indefinitely. And you know what? I was happy, genuinely happy, because I believed that's what mothers do, they sacrifice so their children can soar. Marcus graduated with honors, landed a job at a top consulting firm, married a beautiful woman named Vanessa, and bought a house in the suburbs. On paper, I'd succeeded. My son was thriving. But here's what they don't tell you about success. Sometimes it makes people forget where they came from. The warning signs were subtle at first. Phone calls became shorter. Holiday visits felt obligatory. Vanessa's polite smiles never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. But I convinced myself I was being paranoid. After all, they were busy building their lives. That's normal, right? Then came that Tuesday afternoon in March. I'll never forget it. Marcus showed up at my small apartment unannounced, which was unusual. He was carrying a leather briefcase and wearing that expensive suit I'd bought him for his promotion. His face was serious, almost businessman-like, with none of the warmth I remembered from his childhood. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, not even bothering with a hug. I made tea Earl Grey, his favorite, and we sat at my tiny kitchen table, the same one where I'd helped him with homework for 12 years. He pulled out a stack of papers from his briefcase and slid them across to me. "What's this?" I asked, confused by the legal jargon covering the pages. "It's a power of attorney document," Marcus explained, his tone clinical. "You're getting older, Mom, and Vanessa, and I think it's time we help manage your affairs. You know, make sure bills get paid, handle your medical decisions if needed. It's just responsible planning." Something in his voice made my stomach twist, but I pushed the feeling away. He was my son. He loved me. This was just him being practical, looking out for me like I'd always looked out for him, right? "I can manage my own affairs," I said softly, trying not to sound defensive. Marcus sighed, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Impatience. Annoyance. "Mom, you're 73. Last month you forgot to pay your electric bill. What happens if something serious occurs and you can't make decisions? We're just trying to protect you." The electric bill thing was true. I'd been distracted helping at the church food bank, and it had slipped my mind. One mistake in 73 years of managing my own life, and suddenly I was incompetent. But Marcus kept talking, his words smooth and rehearsed like he'd practiced this speech. He talked about my future, about security, about how much easier things would be if he could just handle things. And slowly, under the weight of his concern and my own exhaustion, I felt myself caving. "Where do I sign?" I finally whispered. Marcus smiled and pointed to 3 different spots marked with colorful tabs. I signed. Dorothy Chen, Dorothy Chen, Dorothy Chen. 3 times I wrote my name, and 3 times I handed over pieces of my autonomy. "This is for the best, Mom," Marcus said, gathering the papers quickly. "You'll see." I watched him leave, the clack of his polished shoes fading down the hall, and sat back in my chair. The teacup before me, still bearing the faint trace of his lipstick, felt heavier than any object I had ever held. My hands shook not from age, not from weakness, but from the sudden, sharp realization that something fundamental had changed. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. It wasn't the act of signing the papers itself. I had done things before out of love, out of duty, out of trust. But this felt different, as though the very foundation of our years together had shifted while I had blinked. I closed my eyes and breathed slowly, trying to calm the storm inside. But the storm wasn't calmable. Memories assaulted me, small, almost trivial details from the past that now seemed significant in a way I hadn't noticed before. I remembered the night I stayed up sewing a prom dress for him because he had no money, and the next morning he had hugged me with sleepy gratitude. I remembered rushing to the hospital in the middle of a freezing winter when he had a fever, my coat barely zipped, hands numb, but carrying him with the certainty that a mother's love could shield her child from anything. I remembered telling him, night after night, "You can do anything. I'll always be here." And now, that same boy, grown and polished and commanding in his expensive suit, had asked me to hand over not just my assets but my autonomy. I tried to reason it away. Surely Marcus wouldn't deceive me. Surely this was responsible planning, like he had said. Surely Vanessa had nothing to do with it. She was just a partner trying to ensure my well-being. Yet, even as I tried to tell myself these comforting lies, a small, insistent voice whispered, "What if you're wrong, Dorothy?" The hours passed in a blur. I cleaned the kitchen almost mechanically, rearranging dishes as if the ritual could steady my mind. I walked to the window and watched the street below, noticing things I hadn't in years: the way the sun fell across the corner shop, the old man sweeping leaves in front of his house, the delivery van that always honked at precisely 8:05 a.m. I clung to these mundane certainties because they felt like anchors in a sea that was suddenly shifting beneath me. I opened my drawers and found old journals I had kept when Marcus was a boy. Pages upon pages of observations, hopes, and fears. One entry caught my eye. March 12, 1983, he fell asleep on my lap tonight. After crying about the bully at school, my back aches, my eyes burn, but I wouldn't trade these moments for anything. One day, he'll be strong, and I hope he remembers that love is constant, even when the world isn't. I read it over and over, a bittersweet ache settling in my chest. I realized that for decades, I had measured my life in Marcus's milestones: first steps, first words, graduations, promotions, believing that my happiness lay in his achievements. But for the first time, I wondered if I had misplaced something essential: my own life. Sleep eventually claimed me, but even in dreams, the image of Marcus's face haunted me. It wasn't anger, it was something colder, distant, calculated. I woke with a start, heart pounding, and knew I couldn't ignore the feeling. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went out into the world alone. not running errands for anyone, not visiting anyone. I walked through the park where Marcus had learned to ride his bike. The swings creaked in the wind. The memories were vivid, him laughing as I held the back of his seat, the scraped knees, the triumphant look. Mom, I can do it. I realized then how little he had ever seen me as Dorothy Chen, the woman separate from his mother. To him, I had always been a constant background, reliable and silent, present but invisible. And now, that invisibility had been weaponized against me. I visited the local library, seeking refuge among books. I read about wills, trusts, and fiduciary responsibilities. The legal jargon made my head spin. But beneath the words, a single truth resonated. No one has the right to steal from you under the guise of care. My pulse quickened with both fear and determination. Later that afternoon, I took a long bus ride, sitting by the window and watching the city pass me by. Faces blurred together, strangers living lives I would never know. I felt a fierce protectiveness rise, not for Marcus, not even for Vanessa, but for the woman I had forgotten to safeguard, me. I returned home and dug through my filing cabinet, finding old receipts, bank statements, anything that could map the history of my finances. I started to realize just how much Marcus could access with a single signature. My blood ran cold. $43,000. My savings, my careful nest egg, accumulated with sweat and sacrifice, now in the hands of someone I had trusted completely. As evening fell, I lit a lamp and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he had made me sign those papers. I spread out everything I had found and began to make lists, notes, plans. I didn't know the law. I didn't know exactly what steps to take, but I knew one thing: I would not be powerless. I remembered Diane, my old friend, who had always nudged me to pursue more than motherhood. Dorothy, you're brilliant. Don't waste it. I picked up the phone and dialed her number. My hands shook slightly, but I forced a calmness into my voice. Diane, I said, I need your help. I think I've been taken advantage of. The next day, Diane came over. Her presence was a bomb, steady, calm, capable. I explained everything, from the signature on the power of attorney to my growing fears about Marcus and Vanessa. Diane listened, asking pointed questions, taking notes, her eyes flicking over my documents. You've done the right thing by reaching out, she said finally. This is serious, Dorothy, but it's not hopeless. We can protect you. For the first time in days, hope flickered inside me. It was fragile, tentative, but it existed. I realized that my love for Marcus didn't have to mean allowing him to harm me. That line was clear. That boundary was mine. The following week became a whirlwind. Diane helped me draft emergency motions, contact the bank, and prepare evidence. Each step, while exhausting, gave me a growing sense of control. I could feel my confidence returning, tempered with caution. Evenings were the hardest. I sat alone, sometimes crying, sometimes staring at the walls of my apartment as though they held the answers. I revisited old photos and letters, remembering the life I had built and the sacrifices I had made, not to feel sorry for myself, but to remember my strength. The day I finally received the notice from the bank that the funds were frozen, my hands trembled with relief. It wasn't the end of the battle, but it was a foothold, a first victory. I had taken the first step in reclaiming not just my money, but my autonomy, my dignity, my life. In those quiet moments, I understood something profound. Age and love do not diminish power, they only make recognizing it more difficult. And yet, even after decades of sacrifice, I could claim it. I could stand up, not as the mother of Marcus, but as Dorothy Chen, as a woman who had given everything and still had enough courage to take back her own life. And so I waited, prepared for the confrontation that would inevitably come. I didn't know what Marcus would say, or how he would try to explain, or if he would even attempt it. But I did know one thing: I would not be silent. I would not be passive. I would not let betrayal define me. Because there is a moment in every life when you must decide, continue to give everything at the cost of yourself, or fight for the life you still deserve. I had made that choice, and nothing, not even my own son's deceit, could take it away from me. He left 20 minutes later, barely finishing his tea. I sat at that table for hours afterward, staring at the cup with his lipstick stain still on the rim, wondering why I felt like I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. I should have trusted that instinct. 2 weeks passed normally. Then the calls started. First, it was my bank. Ms. Chen, we're calling to confirm that you've authorized the transfer of $43,000 from your savings account to an account under Marcus Chen's name. My heart stopped. $43,000. That was nearly everything I had. My life savings, built penny by penny over decades of sacrifice. No, I stammered. There must be a mistake. I didn't authorize anything. According to our records, Marcus Chen holds power of attorney for your accounts and initiated the transfer 3 days ago. If you'd like to dispute this. I hung up. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone. This had to be an error. Marcus wouldn't. He couldn't. But he did. I called him immediately. The phone rang 6 times before Vanessa picked up, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Oh, Dorothy. Marcus is in a meeting. Can I take a message? Tell him I know about the money, I said, my voice cracking. Tell him to call me now. She buzzed. The money. Oh, you mean the transfer? Yes, Marcus mentioned he'd moved your funds to a better investment account. Higher interest rates. Surely that's good news. I want to speak to my son. He'll call you when he's free. Click. He didn't call that day. Or the next. On day 4, I took the bus to his house, the house I'd helped with the down payment for, using money I'd saved for a knee replacement surgery I desperately needed. I rang the doorbell 15 times before Vanessa finally opened it, blocking the entrance with her body. Dorothy, this isn't a good time. I need to see Marcus. He's not here. Then I'll wait. We stared at each other, and in her eyes, I saw the truth. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was calculated, planned, she knew. She'd probably encouraged it. Your son is busy building a future, Vanessa finally said, her voice cold. A future that requires capital. He's invested your money wisely. And frankly, Dorothy, at your age, what were you going to do with it anyway? This way it actually serves a purpose. The door closed in my face. I stood there on their pristine porch, surrounded by perfectly manicured bushes I'd helped plant, and something inside me shattered. Not just my heart though, that was certainly broken, but something deeper. My illusions. My naive belief that love and sacrifice would always be reciprocated. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom, it gives you clarity. I went home and did something I hadn't done in years. I called my old friend, Diane. Diane had been after me for years to join her law firm's paralegal program. Dorothy, you're one of the smartest women I know. You wasted your potential, she'd always say. I'd always laughed it off, too busy raising Marcus to think about myself. Diane. My voice was small. I need help. What happened? I told her everything. And Diane, bless her heart, didn't judge. She didn't say I told you so, she just said, come to my office tomorrow. We're getting your life back. Turns out power of attorney doesn't mean unlimited power. It means the person must act in your best interest. Taking your life savings for their personal investment ventures? That's financial elder abuse. That's fraud. That's prosecutable. Within a week, Diane had filed emergency motions to revoke the power of attorney and freeze Marcus's accounts. Within 2 weeks, we were sitting in a courtroom. I'll never forget Marcus's face when he walked in and saw me sitting there with a lawyer. The shock, The betrayal as if he was the victim. Vanessa sat beside him, whispering urgently, her perfect facade cracking. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes. She read through the case files, then looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Chen, you transferred $43,000 from your mother's savings account to your own. What was this money used for? Marcus cleared his throat. Your Honor, my mother is elderly and I asked what you used the money for. Silence. The judge's expression hardened. According to the records, you purchased a boat, a 30-foot cabin cruiser. Tell me, Mr. Chen, how does that serve your mother's best interests? A boat, my life savings, had become his toy. Your Honor, Marcus tried again, his voice desperate now. My mother gave me power of attorney willingly. She understood. She understood you would act as her fiduciary, which you demonstrably did not. Power of attorney revoked. All funds to be returned immediately, plus damages. We're also recommending a full investigation into potential elder abuse charges. Vanessa gasped. Marcus went pale. But the judge wasn't finished. She looked at me and her stern expression softened slightly. Ms. Chen, I see from your records that you worked 3 jobs to put this man through school. You deferred your own education, your own health care, your own retirement to provide for him. And this is how he repaid you. She turned back to Marcus. You should be ashamed. Court dismissed. Outside the courtroom, Marcus tried to approach me. Mom, please, let me explain. Explain what? I asked quietly. Explain how you saw me as a resource to exploit. Explain how the woman who gave you everything meant so little to you that you'd steal from her. It wasn't stealing. I was going to pay you back. When I demanded, my voice rising for the first time. When, Marcus, after you enjoyed your boat, after you'd made your investments, or were you just hoping I'd die before I noticed? He flinched like I'd slapped him. You want to know the saddest part? I continued, tears streaming down my face now. I would have helped you if you'd just asked. If you'd said, Mom, I need money, I would have found a way. But you didn't ask. You took, you lied. You made me sign papers under false pretenses because you knew if you told me the truth, I'd see you for what you've become. And what's that? He whispered. Someone I don't recognize anymore. I walked away. Diane walked with me, her hand on my shoulder. The money was returned within a month. Every penny plus court-ordered damages. But I didn't keep it. You know what I did. I enrolled in that paralegal program Diane had been pushing me toward for years. At 73, I became a student again. And you know what else? I was good at it. Better than good. I discovered I had a mind for law, for justice, for helping others navigate systems designed to confuse them. 2 years later, I was working part-time at Diane's firm, specializing in elder law. I helped seniors understand their rights, recognize financial abuse, and protect themselves from the Marcus Chens of the world, even when those Marcus Chens were their own children. As for Marcus, I heard through mutual acquaintances that things didn't go well. The boat was repossessed. His fancy job fired him when word spread about the elder abuse investigation. Vanessa left him 6 months later. Apparently, she was only interested in the success story, not the scandal. He called me once, about a year after the trial. I let it go to voicemail. Mom, his voice said, thick with tears, I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I broke something that can't be fixed. But I need you to know, I'm sorry. And I miss you. I miss my mom. I saved that message, not because I planned to respond, but because I needed to remember something important. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to let them destroy you. You can mourn the person they used to be while protecting yourself from who they've become. Did I ever speak to Marcus again? That's between me and my conscience. But I'll tell you this. I learned that some people see love as Unconditional permission to take and take and take. And when you finally say no more, they call you selfish. But setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. I'm 75 now. I work 3 days a week at the law firm. Not because I need the money, but because helping others gives me purpose. I have friends, hobbies, and a life I built for myself, not around someone else's dreams, but around my own. And every time a parent sits in my office, telling me about their child's financial betrayal, I hold their hand and say, "You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. And you're not alone." Because they're not. And neither was I. Sometimes the people who were supposed to protect us become the ones we need protection from. And there's no shame in admitting that. There's only courage in doing something about it. So if you're watching this and something in this story feels familiar, if you've signed something you didn't fully understand, if someone you trust is making financial decisions that benefit them more than you, if you feel gaslit into questioning your own competence, listen to that instinct. It's not paranoia, it's your survival mechanism kicking in. Trust it.